dumb as a post, completely inarticulate, incapable of reading, certainly incapable of writing.
Darwin's theory of evolution is the last of the great 19th century mystery religions. And as we speak, it is now following Freudianism and Marxism into the nether regions. And I'm quite sure that Freud, Marx, and Darwin are commiserating one with the other in the dark dungeon where discarded gods gather.
Evolution is descent with modification. We all are quite convinced that this happened.
I'm not.
Darwinism, well, on my side of the table.
That's for sure.
But
I had a specific question.
I'm finishing.
Ask yourself the rhetorical question of Richard Dawkins were to seize power together with Daniel Dennett as his henchman. How long before the firing squads would start? I would say 5 minutes.
Yeah, biologists do agree that this is the correct theory for the origin and diversification of life. But here are some points you should consider as well. 1, the theory doesn't have any substance. 2, it's preposterous. 3, it's not supported by the evidence. And 4, the fact that the biologists are uniformly in agreement about this issue could as well be explained by some solid Marxist interpretation of their economic interests. That would satisfy me. It's not asking for much, is it?
That's not
evolutionary biology.
Nonsense, and you know it. You study it because it's an interesting and accessible question.
You know, at a certain time I found the United States too small for me and my ex-wives. That's the real truth.
There are two ex-wives, right?
However many, man, it was just too confining. And no matter what else you say about France, I was dead certain I wouldn't run into them there.
Let's be reasonable. We're all sophisticated men and women here. I mean, the popular myth of science is a uniquely self-critical institution, and scientists as men who would rather be consumed at the stake rather than fudge their data. I mean, that's okay for a PBS special, but that's not the real world. That's not what's taking place.
It's always easy to persuade yourself that you've understood something when you haven't understood a thing.
Think of your last traffic ticket. Yeah, you bet, officer. I was doing 98 miles per hour in a 30-mile-an-hour school zone. When was the last time you told the cop that? Hard time imagining that I myself am the product of sheer dumb luck. I like to think of all of evolution groaning its way toward the accomplishment of the noble and lovely thing that is me. But of course, as a critic of Darwinian theory, I don't hold with that.
Dr. Scott, I find myself vexed by your cavalier attitude toward the evidence, especially with respect to the fossil record, and that's the only evidence that your side has presented with great vigor.
Put yourself in the position of a Daniel Dennett or a Richard Dawkins, who are used to being the regnant priests of a powerful orthodoxy, and for the first time in their lives, someone says, hey, you guys are simply not credible. Daniel Dennett had his last idea in 1936, and it was under prenatal influences. What's wrong with that?
Let's kill the helpless. Great idea, Pete. Begin with your mother. No, my mother. Do you see that fascinating story?
No.
My mother, yeah, he's got an elderly mother suffering from Alzheimer's, and the question was raised by the New York Times. Why don't you kind of aid her out? Put her under. No, that's an exception. My mother is the exception. I value her life. I'm not going to submit my mother to any kind of gross utilitarian calculus.
I revel in the name-calling, and when I don't have an argument, I tend to abuse my opponents just as easily as they tend to abuse me. You get a guy like Daniel Dennett, whose greatest intellectual achievement was growing that stupid beard of his, masquerading as a scientific expert on Darwinian theory, staring at the camera, and no one is dousing him with a bucket of water. It's incredible to me. Richard Dawkins is accepted as a great intellect and a fine prose stylist too. The guy writes them, his prose resembles a string of sponges strung together on a wash line. Should be said. Should be said. But this isn't a question of hatred. It's the question of the effective expression of indignation. Go after the guy.
Someone who advocates intelligent design.
I don't.
The fact to someone who advocates intelligent design.
Let's say that they're a whole lot more intelligent, presentable, better dressed, better groomed, smarter, more sophisticated than they give every appearance of being.
And the fossil record. We're not dependent on the fossil record.
Focus on my question. I'm begging you.
So his theory is smoke, but elegant smoke.
There's a certain elegance to it, but you know, I think Einstein had the appropriate remark. He preferred to leave elegance to his tailor. Trouble is not enough of the guys in the black community are devoting their talents to attacking Darwinian theory or quantum mechanics. That's the trouble. Get these rappers off MTV, put them to work, focused direction on Darwin.
You also ask, if evolution is true, quote, then why are women, but not cats, born without the sleek tails that would make them even more alluring than they already are?
The only thing you should take from your experience is the standing refutation of the doctrine of the survival of the fittest that every high school instructor in biology provides. And if you know, tell me. I'll take your call day or night.
In your ideal world, how would scientific discoveries be subject to critique?
In my ideal world, there would be me.